Prince Boji is born to giant parents but is still the smallest person to ever walk the kingdom of Boss. He is weak, deaf and naive but still holds the biggest courage to walk with his head held high. His day goes about running around the field and playing with the animals that roam the land of his father. Because of his handicaps, Boji doesn't play with other children his age and younger because there may be misunderstandings between the two parties, and Boji is usually a victim to the people's ridicule. While going about his day, he meets a shadow creature called Cage who instantly holds him at knife point in an attempt to steal his clothes. Boji, after first struggling to understand Cage, reads his lips and starts to carry out the orders given to him by Cage. Cage tells him to take off his clothes and to do it tomorrow at the same spot. When Boji does so, unhesitant. The next day, Boji goes to meet Cage at the spot agreed while wearing more clothes so that Cage can rob him off them. Cage expresses that Boji is a dimwit for nonchalantly doing all that he is told. Boji then tells him that he appreciates his company and that he only cares for it, and the two become friends, meeting with Boji fat in clothes that Cage will take and going home naked. One day, Boji takes Cage home and gets confronted by his stepmother, Queen Hilling, who ridicules him even more for always coming back home naked. She asks Boji to get dressed and go see his father. While dressing, Boji cries to himself for all the ridicule he has received for the day, but quickly puts on a brave face and Cage sees him. Cage feels sorry for him and starts to emotionally grow closer to and fonder of him. Boji heads to see his father, King Boss, who ranks at the 7th place on the ranking system. The king tells Boji that he must become strong enough to rule his kingdom and orders Damaz to teach him his swordsmanship. Damaz accepts and goes to do just that. While in training, Boji's young half-brother, who is bigger and well-developed, Prince Data, appears to challenge Damaz. They spar as Boji admires both Damaz and Data. Damaz loses to Data, whose strength he likens to that of King Boss, and Boji takes his place to defend him with his own sword. The match is announced in the house and everyone interested comes to watch it play out. Data attacks first, but Boji dodges countless times until he is able to counterattack by landing his soft blow on Data's head, impressing everyone watching and in doubt, including Cage, who cheers him on. Every time Boji dodges and softly counterattacks Data, Data gets mad. Damaz stops them and signs to Boji, who stops dodging altogether and gets beat up by Data while he cries mid-match. It continues to get brutal for Boji until Apias, a sword of the king who has been watching from the roof, throws a spear that stops the fight, making Data the winner of the match. Boji sustains wounds from the match and gets bedridden and covered in bandages. He remembers the words Damaz signed to him before he stopped dodging Data's attacks, that his way of fighting is not the swordsmanship of a king, and he starts to crawl out of bed to a normal-sized sword and tries to pick it up. He fails to pick it up as he is too small and doesn't have the strength to. He cries his eyes out until Cage throws a coin at him. He turns around to face Cage but wipes his tears away and acts brave so not to embarrass himself to Cage. Cage tells him he has nothing to be ashamed of and that his swordsmanship is uniquely his own. To cut the embarrassment short, Boji shows Cage where his clothes are and Cage tells him that no more will he be taking anything from him because he is on his side from then on. Cage stays by Boji's side while Boji sleeps, and when he is about to leave, someone comes into the room. She is shown by the feet and her dress at her ankles that she is a woman, and as Cage is about to think she'll do the worst, she puts her hands above the unconscious Boji, and they glow a magical green, slowly healing Boji's injuries. Cage leaves knowing that Boji is safe despite his previous suspicions. He meets Bibin, a snake handler and Data's swordsmanship teacher, whom Cage had met when he first went to the castle where Boji lives. Bibin wanted to execute Cage for being a shadow creature belonging to a clan of assassins, but Cage had escaped and now they meet again. The next day, King Boss dies and his will is read in front of his corpse. They announce the successor of the throne to be the first prince of the kingdom, Prince Boji, and this shocks everyone. And after Queen Hilling defies the wishes of her late king and rips apart the will, Prince Data is presented as the new king to the kingdom's people. Boji is hurt by this and runs away to cry his heart out. After confronting Cage again, Bibin goes to tell Boji that Cage has left for a journey, and they will never see each other again. Boji goes to seek out Cage on his own. He goes to the snake lair where a giant snake he saved when he was younger called Mitsumata lives. Mitsumata tells Boji that his master, Bibin, has apprehended Cage but let him go on an important journey that he can't tell Boji. But he also assures him that it is not for the sake of harming him. Boji remembers how he was chosen to become king but was opposed as he was weak and frail, and how Cage had promised to be by his side but is now on a journey to help him. Boji sets to follow Cage. He goes to speak with the queen and she refuses him the journey for the same reasons as always. He then decides to run away by climbing out a window from high up in the castle. The queen comes in just time before he lets go of the makeshift rope he put together. Dorsh, the queen's shield, pulls him up but Boji struggles, causing the pieces of the ropes to untie and making him fall to the ground. Queen Hilling hurries to Boji and finds him unconscious and starts to groan loudly and glow in a green light. tearing her dress and putting her hands on Boji to heal his wounds. Boji remembers her from the night of the match when she went in and healed him while he slept. While she is left alone to rest, Hilling remembers her first meeting with Boji and the struggles she had to go through to build the kind of relationship she has with Boji. This makes her a little softer, granting Boji the permission to go on the journey to learn and gain experience and become stronger. She arms him with his teacher, Damaz, and an aide for his personal care, Hokuro. Boji sets off on his journey. The trio first make it to a village where Boji runs from Hokuro to go have fun seeing puppets, buying this and that at the market and sleeping by the fountains. He is later found by Damaz and Hokuro without his bag that had all the important things, and Hokuro gets the heat for losing Boji in the first place. The trio then get dinner to calm down and think about a way forward. They commence the journey the next day and find Boji's bag lying on the street. With everything intact, they decide to continue on their journey and walk all the plain valleys and dangerous forests. Boji gets distracted by a butterfly while they're walking and follows it. He falls into a pit guarded by spears and meets the spearman who owns it. The man kills a wild pig and feasts with Boji, and they dance together when a creation of new animals happens from the dead one that they're eating. After that, the man explains the process to Boji and decides he wants to sacrifice him for the creation of more new lives from his. Boji manages to escape the man and gets together with his company. They set up camp to rest for the night when, while eating, Boji's meat is stabbed by knives thrown from a distance that the three of them can't detect. In the morning, they see a pack of dogs lying dead on the ground from eating Boji's stabbed meat. It was poisoned. After burying the dogs, they go to another town that has a hole of fire in the ground called the Gates of Hell, a pit into the underworld. Damaz tells Hokuro to find a place for them to rest for the night, and he takes Boji to see the Gates of Hell. When they get there, Damaz pushes Boji into the fire pit and leaves him there for dead. But Boji lands safely on the floor of the pit. While marveling at how so, Cage appears from his bag and the two reunite in tears of friendship. Cage tells Boji that he's been with him from the moment he fell off the window trying to escape, to when he wanted to bite into the poisoned meat. He tells him that he was sent to accompany Boji to meet the man that will make him strong, by Bibin the snake handler, and the journey they are about to take leads them deeper into the underworld to meet this man. They head down toward their destination, but Boji starts to smell gas which passes them out. Two men emerge from the smoke and take Boji and Cage on the back of their rides. They are taken to another kingdom, a kingdom of the underworld. When they come to, they meet the ruler of the kingdom, King Dessa, ranked second in the system. He starts to make fun of Boji for his shortcomings and the fact that his younger brother is king and not him. He asks about their intentions, and Cage explains that they are there to see a man that can turn an ordinary man into a man of strength fit for a king. King Dessa admits that it's him they're looking for and that he needs to test the skill level of the person he is to train. One of his knights who transported Boji and Cage to the kingdom stands forward to test Boji. Boji is told to land a strike on the knight who happens to be a captain of the Order of the Underworld, who are famous for their strength and relentlessness. Boji gives it his all, throwing his soft strikes at the guard who, after realizing the situation, stands with his guard down. Dessa ridicules Boji one more time for his weakness before Cage defends him again. He tells Dessa that Boji's strength lies within his ability to dodge attacks precisely. Dessa then tells Boji to not let the guard him, and he doesn't. He dodges the attacks with precision and speed that impresses the knights in the room. And when the knight fighting Boji stops and admires his speed, they all look to Dessa for approval. Dessa says he is still not impressed. He says Boji can survive a battle but can't win it as he won't be able to get through his enemy's armor. Even after Cage's persuasion for Dessa to teach Boji, he refuses, saying that he can't refine talent that's non-existent. The duo is ordered to be kicked out by King Dessa. Cage encourages Boji not to give up and that he will become strong if he works hard. Boji gets motivated to pick up a large rock with fail and then a smaller rock with fail still. He cries when he realizes that indeed he is absolutely feeble. Cage goes to comfort him. The knight whom Boji had sparred with tells them to take the letter of recommendation they had brought with them to the rightful person. When they ask who, they're told that it is the king's younger brother, Prince Despa. King Dessa was just fooling them to amuse himself and didn't let them know any sooner because he is in rivalry with Despa. The pair thank the knights and head to seek for Prince Despa and meet him. They introduce themselves and state the purpose of their visit. Despa asks for compensation for his services, and after Cage pays, he invites them inside. He then reads Boji's hands and finds that Boji is weak and doesn't have even a stray vein of strength in his body. But still, he takes him under his wing to train him to his full potential. Boji and Cage head to bed after familiarizing themselves with the household, and Boji wakes up early in the morning the next day. He does housework and a breakfast that only he can eat since he's a baby giant. Despa then gets ready to train him. Day in and day out, Boji trains with determination until one day when Cage was cleaning outside, he hears a loud bang that rumbles even the ground. He rushes to the room Boji is training in where he's prohibited to enter. He asks about the loud noise he heard and asks if Despa and Boji are okay. When Despa opens the door to answer Cage's questions, Cage sees a glimpse of Boji posed in front of a rock that has been split in half. The door slowly closes on his face, leaving him wondering about Boji's progress. Boji finally completes his training, having fully mastered the way of Despa's training, the Despa arts. Boji, Cage and Despa make their way to celebrate Boji's training completion. But as they head out the door, Cage notices that Boji has a sword by his side and asks about it. Boji swings it and impresses Cage, but when he takes it out of the sheath, Cage gets utterly disappointed by its slim and needle-like look. Despa confronts Cage about his skepticism when he tells him that giving Boji a needle and calling it a sword is not going to help anyone. Cage apologizes to Boji and they head to their celebration. While they eat, 3 monsters whom are citizens of the underworld approach the trio and start to pick a fight. They mock Despa for his looks and he sends one flying with a punch which he instantly regrets. The monsters get back up and start to beat him up, but Boji doesn't sit it out seeing that Despa is ganged up on. He tries to defend but is easily pushed to the side. He gets back up and after dodging a few attacks, he lands a blow as soft as a daisy on the monster's chin. The monster, after a second, starts losing his balance and passes out, ruling Boji's punch and knockout. Boji continues to defend and finally draws his weapon, the needle sword, and dodges a few attacks from the monster. In a flash of lightning, he defeats his opponent, who falls to the ground screaming in pain. Cage panics that Boji killed the monster, but Despa checks his vitals and finds that he just passed out as before. Despa then explains to Cage the science behind Boji's weak attacks that still yield great results. The placement and timing of the punch on that certain spot, and the stabbing of the needle without causing extensive damage to the brain or blood vessels. Cage celebrates Boji's victory and the 3 head home afterward. On the way home, Despa tells Boji and Cage to head on first as he needs to attend to something. He quickly runs around the corner to go meet the monsters whom Boji had just defeated and pays them for their participation in the fight. Later at night, when Boji and Cage are sitting outside, Cage decides to finally tell Boji what has been going on in his castle, having been told by Bibin. After hearing all of this, Cage asks Boji what he will do. Boji, remembering how Damaz had betrayed him, gets scared that Queen Hilling may do him in. He starts to take a walk and Cage follows him to ask him about his lack of courage. Boji then starts to punch himself and hitting his head on the ground in order to gain his courage back and set for home. Boji and Cage bid their byes to Despa to return home. Despa encourages Boji to love himself as he is and continue to be as courageous as he is. Knights of the Order of the Underworld arrive as the 3 men are still saying their goodbyes, and offer to transport Boji back to his kingdom. Despa explains to them that it is because criminals of the underworld have infiltrated the kingdom and King Dessa has deployed the knights to take Boji home and capture the criminals. The knights explain who the criminals are and Cage continues to encourage Boji with his newfound strength through the Despa arts. The knights continue to explain to Cage and Boji how the criminals may have gotten into the kingdom. Cage and Boji finally arrive at the kingdom to find a criminal that has left the castle to attack the civilians. The criminal is said to be one of the most dangerous, as even Despa said for the knight not to fight him until he arrives. The criminal, known as Alkan, the sword of the underworld, has cut up the people and is now to face the captain of the underworld order, who is going against Despa. When Boji wants to partake in the fight, the knight stops him as Despa had said that Boji would be defeated by Alkan if he were to fight him. The knight tells Boji to head for the castle to help protect Queen Hilling. Boji and Cage make their way to the castle in haste. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.